We'll get into the presentation, and I've actually, probably for the last 3 years, across Canada but also globally, have started out my presentations by asking one question. And I'm going to do it again tonight. It's been interesting because it's been fairly consistent answers over the period that I've been doing this. But in the last month, you may be able to guess why, it's been a little bit different. But I'm going to ask you to close your eyes and think about the first word that comes to your mind when you think about the future. How do you feel about the future? Take a minute. First word. So anybody willing to share with me what you're thinking?
My word is determination.
Determination, great. Hopeful, great. Collaboration. Confusing. Change. Promising. Empowered. Wow, Vancouver is very positive. I maybe need to come back more often. This is usually, even over the last few years, this is usually what I get. There's a range of people feeling excited and optimistic. I don't know why, I have no idea, but you see up just above the E in excited, somebody said thirsty. I'm actually really worried they were actually thirsty in the start of my presentation. But maybe they were thirsty for the future. That's how I'm choosing to interpret it. But you can see here, like, there's a broad spectrum of emotions that people are feeling, right? And I'm willing to bet that all of you are feeling both ends of that spectrum at different times, right? And it's almost like the last 4 or 5 years, like if you take COVID, if you take all of the other things we've been through, there's almost this visceral feeling inside of us that there's uncertainty, there's confusion, there's maybe a little bit of dis-ease about the change that we're all facing. And you could ask yourself why that's happening. We know, obviously, COVID and all of the other things. But there's also a really major change happening with technology, as an example. And one of the things we really suck at as humans is exponential change or growth. Even when you talk about it all the time, like myself, you still don't understand what's actually happening right now. And we've kind of crossed a threshold. So exponential growth, if I was to maybe give you an analogy of if I was to take 2 steps, say 30 steps, and each step was 2 feet, how far would I get?
60 feet.
Wow, you guys are great. This is math. If I did 30 exponential steps at 2 feet, starting at 2 feet, so 2 feet, 4 feet, 8 feet, 16 feet, 32 feet, I'm going to stop there. How far would I be in 30? I could go to the moon, right? And so it starts out slow, and then all of a sudden, each additional incremental step is really significant. But when we think about the future, we usually look backwards, right? We're projecting back, we say how things have changed, and we think it's going to continue kind of on that path. When we actually turn around, and right now, it's actually hitting us in the face, right, this curve. I actually thought, I was talking to my team, my graphic designer, I should have him up on the, the side of the curve holding on, because that's kind of how it feels right now, right? Things are changing so rapidly. And technology, it's interesting because we tend to overestimate its impact when it first comes in, a new technology, but we also tend to underestimate it in the longer run, its impact. And that curve that you see here is actually made up of a bunch of these S-curves of all different technologies coming together. So we are in probably the most unprecedented time of change and impact on technology. And I'm sure you're probably tired of hearing about it, but yes, it's AI. And it is impacting, it's not just the chatbot that you see popping up in all the tools you use on your computer. It's actually how it's impacting every other technology and every other industry out there, and it's accelerating the advancement of every single type of technology and tool. Whether we're talking about fusion power or any other technology that may seem to be far off, those curves are accelerating really, really quickly. So it is changing everything. And in some ways, that's very exciting, but there's also a lot of challenges that we're going to go through. I think I've actually said many times, and I'm not certainly the only person, but if you compare it to other general purpose technologies or technologies humans have adopted, think about fire, right? I can't imagine living now without fire. Think of all the uses of combustion and fire. But guess what? We still have a lot of challenges and issues with it. We had to learn how to build fire codes and have fire alarms and have fire breaks, and we still have major issues. Look at what just happened in California, right? So it's hard to imagine a future, and we will get to a future where it'll be hard to imagine. It will be positively impacted by AI, but there will also be challenges. And a lot of those challenges are actually, initially, I believe, some people will disagree, but a lot of it's going to cause disruption in our labor markets. I believe, I'm a technology optimist, it may not sound like it, but in the long arc, it's going to be positive. But it's going to have to take time for us to figure it out and get things right, and there's going to be more confusion in that transition than I think people are willing to talk about right now. And I've traveled all over the world. I was speaking in Singapore and Saudi Arabia and all over the world. What people are not talking about is that transition period. I compare it to like cleaning out your garage. Anybody do that this year? Right? You have a vision about what that garage could look like, you know, if you clean it out. But guess what? You have to drag everything out in the front yard and then put it back, right? And figure out how it goes back together. And that is a process. I hear people a lot of times say, well, but don't worry, you know, at the Industrial Revolution, we've been through this before, there's always more net new jobs. And I always say, have you actually studied the Industrial Revolution? Right? Have you seen the 20 years? Do you know where the term Luddite or anything else comes from? It was a challenging time of transition. Yes, it was better, but there was challenges, right? And so if you're hearing about AI again, it's not just the chatbot on your phone, it's not just ChatGPT. In fact, if you actually are interested, there's a massive advancement in humanoid robotics that happened last week, a company called Figure. If you look up a YouTube video, Figure Helix, you can see two robots who have never seen a bag of groceries before, putting the groceries away in a kitchen. This is happening. They're already in manufacturing facilities. It's embodied AI in physical form. And we're building world LLMs so we can have spatial computing, spatial analysis. It's advancing rapidly. There are 8 companies that have over $1 billion of investment that are focused solely in this area. So what does that mean for all of us? It means a lot of change, right? Something else that's unique, actually, it's not unique globally, but it's certainly different than our neighbors in North America, is anybody willing to guess how many businesses or employers, say employers, we have in Canada? How many organizations employ people? Wild guess.
A million.
Anybody else? It's close. That's actually one of the closest guesses I've had. It's actually 1.34 million, based on a Canadian Chamber of Commerce study in June of 2024. But if I was to take the median company of that 1.34 million, how many employees do you think it would have? 4.5. So in Canada, we actually have the vast majority, 92% of our labor force actually works in small or micro companies, not even just SMEs. And guess what's challenging for small businesses? Adopting technology, right? So there are a lot of things. We do a lot of work in this area. How do you help small businesses? Why? Because it has significant potential impact on productivity. Another thing we're hearing about a lot right now, right? But productivity, what does that even mean? Right? Like when you hear a news story, does it actually sink in? Unless if you're not an economist. Like the example that I heard that actually brought it home for me, Finland has the exact same GDP per person as Canada, but they do it with 4 less weeks of work a year. Even potentially more. The average hour worked in Canada, and if you compared an American worker to a Canadian worker, and this is not a worker-to-worker comparison, in the macro, right, overall, how much more productive do you think a worker in the US is than in Canada? 30%. And where does that productivity go? It's the dividend that goes into paying our health care, our social programs, all of those things that I think build the society that we would want to live in, right? And I'm not trying to compare ourselves to the US on how to organize or anything else, especially now. But there are issues. We have, there's certain segments, if you took out, just to be clear, if you took out our energy sector, oil and gas, and you took out construction, the numbers change fairly significantly. But overall, there are some pretty significant challenges that we have in productivity. And so for us, we think a lot about how we help our small businesses become more productive. What percentage of Canadian employers do you think are having a problem finding the right talent? Yeah, close to 60% are expressing that they're having a hard time finding the right talent. Where is all of the skilled talent growth coming from in Canada right now? Immigration, right? So do you think getting that right might be important? And I don't think what's interesting here is, and there's been a lot of studies to show this, I'm not going to say no Canadians, but not many Canadians have a problem with immigration. They have a problem with a lack of a plan in immigration, right? And I think, to Patrick's point, we've kind of been suffering from that. Like picking a number out of the air and saying, hey, we should bring 500,000 people might not have been the best idea. We certainly need to bring the right people that match the jobs and the need in our labor market, and we have to do a better job of integrating them. We have to. Because, as Patrick said, we're in a global environment. What else is happening globally right now? Macro trend. Population decline. Right? In every country, even Africa now, there's a massive population decline. So there's some challenges in creating an economy where you have continued growth, and you need to grow, and you need more talent, you need more people, and you want to build more GDP. And declining populations in almost every country. Countries like China have some of the worst population decline. Maybe techno-optimists think that humanoid robots are going to come to the rescue. Maybe it will be part of the solution. But it is a big thing we need to be thinking about, for sure. So there are a lot of challenges. And this was an AI-produced image. I was still working on this presentation today at 3:30, even though CAC had asked for it last week. So I just put a prompt into ChatGPT and asked for an image. So if there's any spelling correct issues or anything, it's not my fault. We can just blame it on AI. But there are a lot of macro issues, right, that are going to cause us challenges. But what's the solution for it? Anybody have an idea? How do we address this? The issues that I've been talking about. I don't have all the solutions, But in this room, anybody throw out some ideas? What is one or few approaches of how we address some of these challenges that I brought up? Any ideas?
Realign the education system.
Education, right? A lot of it, like, that's easy to say, really hard to do, right? Let's realign the education system.
Forced settlement. Forced settlement.
Okay, that's interesting. Want to hear more about that, Manu? Anybody else?
Solutions are interconnected to each other. So it's like, the way I see it, there's no one single solution to the problem.
Exactly, and it's usually complex, right? We tend to be a society right now that looks for simple solutions to simple problems. We actually need to embrace complex solutions to complex problems. And what's that going to require? Collaboration. Somebody mentioned it when I first opened up, right, in the first question. Collaboration. Look, this is another AI generated. Look, I get Vancouver in. I didn't make the mistake and have Toronto. I got it right. Actually, the first one came out. It was Toronto because it knows my address. But I had to, tell it to redo it. But just trying to say, it's collaboration. And this is why organizations like IECBC and your commitment and participation in that is becoming more and more and more important moving forward. I really, really believe this. The way forward is going to be collaboration. And I actually believe, to a large degree, the future will be more human. Because we will actually, in amongst all the technology, we're going to crave more human connection, more collaboration, and that will be what pulls us back together. But we will go through periods of chaos, and we do need organizations, like I said, like IECBC. So for those of you here that are committed, whether you're an employer, you're a board member, or however else you participate, it's really, really important work that we're all doing together. And creating networks of these organizations across the country is also going to be really important. And I might be a little bit early. I'm happy to take questions if we have extra time, but I want to leave you with one story. And I can really drag this story out if you want. But one of my senior directors, she said, "Wow, you really took that one for a walk." The last time I was doing a presentation. Anybody guess what this photo is? If you do, I'd be really impressed.
Is it Dresden?
No. But it is a lot of devastation, right? You can see. It's nope. It's obviously like late 1800s, early 1900s. It was the last major industrial fire. It was actually in Baltimore, Maryland. Last major industrial fire in North America. It was a Sunday morning on a February 4th, really cold day. And there was an alarm to the local fire department. Fire department rushes over. Fortunately, it came to pass that, it started in the business district, which on Sunday was kind of vacant, but it very quickly grew out of control of that fire department to be able to fight this fire. And so they put this call out on a telegram at the time to all of the other cities in the region, as far away as New York City, Washington, Philadelphia, the whole region, all of the fire departments in between. And like we always do when there's a crisis, people rose to it and rushed to try and help Baltimore during this fire. Just to give you it ended up burning 81 city blocks. It was massive devastation. The only people, fortunately, it's not fortunate they died, but fortunately only 5 people died, and it was actually firefighters who caught pneumonia from fighting the fire in the freezing cold temperatures. But when all of those fire departments showed up to help fight this fire, what do you think happened? Oh, they wanted to collaborate. What was keeping them from doing it? At that time, these are all good guesses, but at that time, in the US, there were 600 different sizes and couplers to connect fire hoses to fire hydrants and equipment, and every local community and every single organization had a different way of doing it. And so they showed up. You had all these trained firefighters showing up to fight the fire, and they were just standing by, kind of looking at it and saying, I wish you could help. Now, local machine shops immediately jumped into action, right? They started creating couplers to help the firefighters from New York connect theirs to the Baltimore standard. But that was slow, right? You can see us do that. I remember Syrian refugee crisis. I remember COVID. Like all of these, we've risen up and we've come together. And we respond really quickly. It's actually amazing what we can do in a crisis. But wouldn't it be better if we knew how to come together and collaborate and have the outcome or have the impact or support people? And that's what I'm asking now. I don't think we can avoid all of the chaos that we will have, but what are the things that we can do to make sure that we can minimize the impact on people? Because that's what we're talking about. If there's anybody that's saying, it's going to be fine, there's going to be more net new jobs, what they're forgetting about is the people that are actually going to be affected in our communities in that transition. And those are the people we should actually care about. So my challenge to you, I don't have all the answers, but figure out what the interoperability or what are the ways of coming together more quickly. How can we get to action faster when we have crises, whether it's driven by technology automation or it's driven by, I won't get political, but tariffs, or whatever it might be caused by. Like, how do we actually work together? And I think that's something we've been really focused on. Patrick mentioned our event. And it's really just bringing people together who actually give a crap about the people that are going to be affected and figuring out how to minimize that impact when it happens. So that's what I want to leave you with today. Thank you for your commitment to IECBC and for the work that you do to make your communities better and our country better. And let's keep working together on these things.